All right. What does it cost to follow Jesus? This is the discussion that we're talking about today. And one of the many advantageous things that we get to do when we have these kind of discussions for our religion topic is really drawing from the influence of our culture and our surroundings. Scorsese, almost there. Scorsese, rather, has written and made and whatever a new film. He's made a new film.
He's directed, not written.
Called Silence, based on a book from 1966. So there will be some discussion in here that might lead you to a few spoilers, but the reality is the book's been out for over 50 years. So if
it's on you, bro.
Yeah, kind of. Like right. If we'll be generous and good Christians and
give everything away.
Good Christians give spoiler alerts.
Spoiler alert warning.
Good Christians give spoilers.
I'm not a very good Christian, I
guess. You can go ahead and hit the 10-second fast forward on your iPod Nano, or your Zune. And
can Zune even play podcasts?
We come to find out today that James had two, not just one Zune, but two. Really doubling the bad decisions.
They were both awesome.
They weren't.
No, the people failed Zune. Zune did not fail the people.
I agree. I held one time, and I liked the way it was built
okay.
as a paperweight.
Okay, that's good for the ears.
So this is a good discussion, and because largely, I'll just go ahead and say this. I'm going to put this out there, and this might be a little bit backlash worthy, but evangelicals oftentimes have a false persecution complex, where we think we're undergoing a lot of attacks on our faith that are like
Trump, my Lord and Savior,
shaking our Christianity to their core, when in reality they're not.
Do you have an example?
Yes, but I'll just go ahead and leave them.
Why would they cancel VeggieTales? They hate Christianity or something like that.
When you can literally do anything you want the next day and it doesn't affect you at all.
Yeah. Like the idea of taking the 10 Commandments outside of a courthouse.
Starbucks cup.
And then all of a sudden they're like, that's an assault on Christianity.
Right.
And it's like, not really. But okay. Yeah. So this is a real conversation, rather, in terms of, that guy looks sad.
Not a fake conversation.
So this is important to mention.
Not just Chris in a room with.
This is an important thing to mention. The majority of this conversation comes out of the influence by this Christianity Today article that James found and kind of passed around to us.
Written by Brett McCracken.
He released the McCracken on this article, and we're really excited.
He's never heard that before.
Shut up. So this is good. So Garrett, you have read the book in preparation for this.
Yeah.
So Garrett really just motored through things. Garrett actually has this fantastic ability to just read and read and read and read. So give us a little bit of a lowdown on the book. What is it about? And kind of kick us off and introduce us here.
So the author of the book is
not Martin Scorsese.
I don't have it memorized. Oh, Shasuku Endo, Japanese American.
Shia LaBeouf.
Reading the book, I don't even know. I wouldn't even be able to tell if he's a Christian. The book isn't necessarily leaning towards a positive take on Christianity or not. The story goes. It's a novel. It's not a true story, but it's based on a true time in Japan's past when Christianity was illegal. The rulers of Japan said that Christianity is fine, but it's just not for the Japanese people. And so it is illegal to be Christian.
It's a historical fiction.
Right.
A fiction based in a historical place and time.
And I guess it started with kind of just saying Christianity is legal. You can be Christian, but we're not going to allow any new Christian missionaries to come. You can't worship anymore. And I guess that went all the way until Christian persecution, killing, torturing Christians. The story goes, there is a Jesuit priest who supposedly abandons his faith. Word gets back to two of his mentors that he grew up teaching.
Father Rodriguez and Father Garp.
Yeah, and they say there's no way that he abandoned his faith. We're going to go find him, find out what's going on, bring him back. They leave, and in the course of this journey, faith is challenged to the point of both of these men questioning their faith and questioning their belief. And basically,
why does this questioning occur?
Basically, what happens is the Japanese officials say, if you give up your faith, we will save the life of this individual right in front of you. If you do not, we will kill them. So
you'll leave it right there.
Yeah, that's the question proposed on multiple occasions, allowing these individuals. And you find that the guy, when he gives up his faith, you find out that he was presented with too many questions like this and too many situations where he basically chose loving an individual by giving up his faith. Mm-hmm. Or I mean, whether or not he gave it up, he had to deny Christ.
Which, by the way, I mean, for those who haven't read as much of the Bible as some of us, That's a very some people take too lightly the notion of like giving up my public facing faith, but the thing is, in the New Testament there's a lot to be said about, if you do not if you do not proclaim me before others, I will not proclaim you before my Father, right? Like these are imperatives in the New Testament,
Very serious consequences
about being public facing
Yeah.
with your faith,
Yeah,
even in front of persecution, which is really cute to talk about. But when it comes to like these really tough applications,
Well,
like
a
what
perfect
do you do?
example of what you're talking about is when it's Peter and John were beaten for their faith, and they leave the temple rejoicing in the book of Acts, right? Because they
Right.
were counted worthy as being able to suffer on account of the gospel.
And,
Now,
but that's what
that's no small thing, but that's choosing persecution upon yourself.
Right.
What happens when it's persecution upon
Somebody
who doesn't
else.
deserve?
That's and
Yeah.
that's an. Oh, I don't want to cut you
well,
off. Go ahead.
that's what the authors. Oh, sorry, that's what the characters of the book say. They're like, just persecute me.
Mhm.
And they even said in the book at one point that they're from Portugal. Is that back in Portugal and in Europe, the persecution that we're seeing in Japan, they've never seen anything like this. We think of persecution as happening to ourselves, that we're trained to handle, that we rejoice in. But taking a family of children.
I'm just gonna admit, I don't think I would rejoice in receiving getting beaten.
Well,
for
that's
my-
just what the Jesuit priests are saying. that,
Oh,
like,
yeah, maybe for them, yeah.
They're
I'm
saying
just saying for me. I
they're,
don't know if I'm.
they're saying why
that
are you,
strong of a person.
why should you come back and report, that you couldn't handle the persecution? And like, well, it's not like anything we've ever experienced.
Mhm.
It's innocent lives are being lost because we won't just give up our faith.
So this is a good conversation because I'm reminded of this in Romans when Paul's talking about wishing the idea of anathema and condemnation on himself for the sake of his Jewish brothers and sisters to be able to kind of come to know the saving and redemptive grace of Christ. And so this is like an outplaying of that desire that Paul kind of seems to have, right? Also, for anybody who is interested in this movie, you should see it mainly because the Jesuit priest is Liam Neeson. And
He's one of them, yeah.
He's got a very special set of skills
So he lost his mentor and he has to go find him.
that he has developed over
Just
many years.
taken
No,
four?
no,
he's
he's the one
actually-
who's actually
okay.
missing this time.
He's taken
So
four.
it's like taking
Tables have turned.
He traveled in time and he's lost.
He's the one
Two
taken
time
now.
traveling.
And
yeah,
so,
time travel.
Okay, so this is good. So James, why don't you keep us moving here in the conversation?
Well, this is a Scorsese film, like you mentioned, and I think it bears mentioning, and certainly the article that we all read mentions it as well, that this is the same Scorsese that made the very controversial Last Temptation of Christ, a movie from the 80s, I believe, Chris?
88.
88. That, again, like I said, back then, very controversial, very much like uniformly rejected by Christians and the church, those who care at least.
It's a condemned Roman Catholic, or condemned by the Roman Catholics.
Yeah, but condemned by everybody in America.
Ironically,
every
of which
Christian group.
Scorsese is a part.
And many movie
Scorsese.
fans in general.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it wasn't a great film, but regardless of that, and it was a movie that explored an interpretation of the man Jesus Christ and his sexuality, which you can see how that would upset quite a few people, and the object of his sexuality was Mary Magdalene. So very controversial. Scorsese has a very interesting thought that was mentioned in the article we read, where he says like that movie reflected where the questions of my faith then, and I'm now past that, and the current movie now has different questions.
Now I know for sure that Jesus married her and had kids.
Which I thought that was a really good answer. I mean, it's a very honest answer. He's saying like that's where I can see now that maybe he was in a place where his faith was struggling with his own sexual questions, whatever they were, and what it meant to be
Sure.
a man of faith, but also
He just happened to be
human
wrestling
being.
with it in a public sector as
Right.
opposed to most of us who wrestle in private.
Right, exactly. and in his older age and after many years of
Nailed it.
experience, what his faith struggles with is maybe something else, something that's reflected in silence. I haven't seen the movie yet, so I don't know what Scorsese's spin is going to be.
I read it's like 161 minutes long or something like that.
It's 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Whoa.
That would be right.
So
That would be exactly.
Sounds like Captain America 4.
just
Which is
touching
also
on
going to
that,
be awful.
just touching on
Nope.
that. There's I read an article. This was one of his favorite books of all times, and I remember reading through it thinking, this is a great book, and there's no doubt that it's a masterpiece. I'm just not sure how it's someone's favorite book because the theme is difficult, and yet I guess I might be spoiling, but yet
Spoiler alert. Spoiler
I
alert.
keep remembering this moment where, so I guess they have this thing called the fumee. I'm not sure if that's a Japanese term, but it's a crucifix that the Japanese officials are asking all the Christians to step on to
It's a
prove.
coin, isn't it? It's like a copper coin or
Oh,
something?
maybe. I thought
Yeah,
it
it's
was
a coin with the
crucifix.
face of Jesus on it.
Okay, so that's how they prove it, And so there's this younger priest struggling with it, and there's this scene. I'm really excited to see how they do this in the movie, where the Jesus starts talking to the priest.
The coin?
Yeah, the coin, at least in his head, and
It's like Pee-wee's Playhouse. The furniture talks.
well, it's like this extreme. So he's literally being like
Chris is not impressed.
he's being held by this captives, and there's this family that they're going to be murdered, and
Inanimate objects talking is just funny.
well, I mean, I don't know. The book just said that
Right, yeah, I'm
he
just
heard him
picturing,
talking.
like a movie. Someone tried to make this into a movie and doing it like not that great.
Yeah, like a puppet coin, like a
Yeah.
puppet
Yeah.
mouth. Yeah.
Maybe
Uh,
Sesame
I
Street or
think-
something.
I think the book probably presents it as in his great distress and
Right.
like mental anguish. This
Right,
is sort
something
of
like
what
that.
goes on internally.
So and the Jesus on the coin says to step on me because this is why I died so that others may live, and I think that's the moment where the book turns from being this that God is silent the whole film. That's the whole point. So the Japanese say your God is silent while all of these things happen. That's why they get the title Silence. And yet in the book, Jesus finally speaks to an individual and says to value the lives of others more so than
him.
this.
Yeah.
To make the sacrifice.
It's
so than
a
the
different.
image.
It's a different.
I sacrificed my life to be stepped on.
Yeah, it's a different spin on. Paul talks about, especially in Philippians, dying to self, right? So what is dying to self in this context? Dying to your own faith stability, dying to maybe even your own salvation, your own confidence in your own salvation for the sake of others' lives. Like that's a new form of dying to self.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm largely reminded of the three verses, right? The idea of working out our salvation with fear and trembling, and this kind of adds a new dimension to that for me, kind of what you were just saying. But the idea of strength or God's power being perfected in our weakness, right? In 2 Corinthians 12:9, right? And so this is the power of weakness thing. But the idea of Christ emptying himself in this taking and being obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. And so if this is the case, then the article poses an interesting question about whether or not these people can still be Christian, right? The wrestling of that with they themselves, which we've kind of already touched on. But the idea of saying, like, do you think it's possible for Christianity to exist in that state? If somebody is forced to kind of make that decision or forced to kind of practice that way in terms of death of other people, do you think that Christianity is valid? So I don't know if we've had a little bit of time to think about that, but I want to kind of put that question out there because this actually has a little bit of an analogous parallel in the world of Christianity and Islam, right? With people who are converting in the Middle East there, and kind of there's this scale, like a C1 to C5 kind of idea, or negative 5C to like 5 or C5, whatever, and where like Muslims who have converted might be on this scale, and so on the one end of the scale, it's like still basically practicing everything about Islam there, but now with just Christ as the center of it, as opposed to being a fully, you and me kind of Christian
Almost
in
acclimated.
the open.
Acclimated, you might say.
Yeah, and so that kind of is an analogous parallel here to some degrees. Can Christianity be valid if it's kind of done in
private
in this way? Yeah, in more of a private setting. And so,
Right.
what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well,
Not to put you on the spot, but definitely to put you on the spot.
Again, this is where the movie explores a slightly more difficult question. Is because that question is only putting self on the line. Can I by protecting myself through private faith still be Christian?
Yeah.
But the question of the movie and the book is really, what if it's other people who are on the line? Can you keep your faith quiet for others?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's two different things. I would say for self, I mean, if you want the New Testament answer, no. When it comes to self, you be public about it.
Right.
But when it comes to others, that's where it gets harder to answer. Does that make?
Yeah, I mean, I think taking a specific biblical studies approach to it might be even different than a theological approach studying the nature of God. I would think that a grace, mercy-filled God would see the simple act of stepping on something as way less of signifying your faith as saving the lives of innocent people. I mean, the book, not that this might not make that much of a difference, but the characters in the book say, do this, and even if you still believe, we don't care. Just step on the fumee as a formality to show that you are no longer a Christian, but we don't care what you actually believe.
Right.
Why would the knowledge of your faith to someone else really depend on whether or not you believe in God? Why would God care what a few other individuals think about what you've done with your faith if it saves the lives of other people?
Well, I mean, I'll give the devil's advocate answer to that, and I don't mean to be I don't mean to be challenging, but this is what I think of when you ask that question, is that because inherent to the Christian gospel is spreading the gospel. It's converting others. It's bringing others to the gospel. That's, I would say, New Testament Christianity, that's one of the central factors.
Mm-hmm.
And to have a private faith is not to achieve that. Having a private faith is basically stunting the spread of the gospel. Right? You can't be private and a missionary in the proper sense.
It's buried talents.
Yeah, I guess I'm just saying in that one circumstance when the Japanese officials hold this Japanese family.
I'm not trying to have a fight with you. I'm just trying to explore.
I don't think you are either. But
fight about it.
You know what? Let's fight.
Come at me, bro.
In this book, there's a Japanese family, men, women, and children, and they're going to drown them in the ocean. And all you have to do is step on this figure of Christ, and they'll let them go.
Yeah,
and,
I don't know if I'd have a
and
problem
in the book,
stepping on the figure.
And in the book, they are it isn't a ruse. I mean, they are in other situations, they go. People do it. They step on it and they go, okay, everyone's free to go, and they just walk off.
But I think we're imagining these scenarios with a certain social framework in our mind, where for us, like, public life is so gigantic with so many millions of people that once you get past one scenario, you kind of drift back into the ether. But in the world they're living in at the time of this book, the historical situation, these are small little towns that are very they're watched over closely. So that one event doesn't just end. You don't go back drifting into the ether once you get out of the police station in our country, you can drift back into nothing, right? And not be paid attention to.
So do you think it's more effective to step on that and continue to try to do mission in that village, or do you think it would be more effective to
do
let
missions
the
in that
family
village?
die?
They'll know. They'll find out again. That's the trick.
Sure.
So I mean, I'm
Yeah,
not
just keep stepping on the image, and they just keep letting people go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just speaking directly to the point that public or private faith, not so much stepping on the coin. Like, you have to, by stepping on the coin, you are choosing now fully private faith. Because if you just go back to being a missionary, everybody's going to know the next day in that town what you're doing.
Correct, but you're doing work in a mission field where being a Christian is illegal, and at any moment you could be caught and killed. So your time is limited to begin with. So you probably do the best that you can, I guess, until you're caught and killed, or until you return home and train others to go do the same thing.
And get killed.
Well, so let me put this in a modern context. So I have met a few people who are missionaries in North Korea, actually, and don't talk about it too often. I mean, they don't
mention names.
They don't. No, definitely not.
Yeah.
But they are missionaries over there, and they're active in their proselytizing in terms of being willing to do that. But they never tell anybody that they're Christians. They never bring it up ever there. But when people find out that they're from America, that's for whatever reason, religion is one of the first things that comes up. And so they talk about it in private, really just only in the privacy of the home there.
But they would say
it never leaves
in a
the
public
house.
setting, if they were getting their state-controlled mail, and someone said, "Oh, you're from America. Are you a Christian?" They would just say no, a stranger.
And from what I've heard, when somebody has asked them like that in a one-on-one, they say, "Yeah, we actually are Christians. Like we're followers of Christ."
Not one-on-one, in a public setting. Like someone just asked them, like.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know that the situation's actually come up yet for them to actually have to go through that. So the question, I mean, that's fully private almost in that setting. So what do you think about the validity of that? I mean, in terms of, because that's a really hard thing that you're presenting as far as the New Testament is, because I think you're 100% right. Like, as far as the New Testament goes, there's no, I mean, if you were to hear that story in Acts, it would be like, well, they just said they were Christians and then they were killed and everybody was, all right, hooray, they're going to heaven. I mean, it would be fully public.
I mean, the Acts chapter 7 is a challenging chapter here, where Stephen just like, I'm going to just say what I'm going to say and die for it.
Yeah.
The end. Happy ending.
Yeah.
Happy ending.
Yeah.
You're in heaven,
very,
Stephen.
Very celebrated.
They're all high-fiving in heaven at the end.
With their puppies.
And so, nope, no dogs go to heaven. Sorry, children watching this. We just lost our 8 and under demographic.
Spoiler alert.
So,
where's Fluffy? Wait, where's Fluffy?
And he's in upstate New York.
Up next, Santa Claus.
Nice.
So I don't know. That's a hard thing for me to to wrestle.
But you
with.
guys are bringing it back to your own faith. You're not bringing it back to the Japanese family who may or may not be saved, who are being drowned. So
if I'm put in this situation, I'm going to step on the icon 1,000 times out of 1,000 and then just continue doing ministry with people. If that proves to be the more effective thing. So I'll do it once first. If it doesn't work, go into a new village and then, I don't know, probably dying. But
right.
the idea of it, like,
Just keep trying different villages.
I don't know. I
different
tend to
things.
think of this iconography thing.
So this is what happens in this book. These guys
Whoa.
go. These guys go, and they have no idea of what they're in store for.
Okay.
They keep thinking, I can handle any persecution on myself. I can there's no way I would deny my faith. How could Father, whatever his name, how could he possibly do that? They just did this concept
I will find you.
of Japan putting the lives of others in front of them is completely foreign to them. And and it's a pivotal moment in the book, and it's towards the end or
I think it's hard to love other people when they're dead.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put that out
and they're
there. I think,
completely everyone's completely wrecked. I mean, he goes in not knowing, he's like, like, okay, I got this, they captured me, everything's going to be fine, I'm awaiting my trial tomorrow. Then they bring in these people and at this scene on the coast, and he's like just wrecked. He has no idea what he's going to do.
Get wrecked.
So
That was applicable. Jeez.
I think that's the difference, even in the biblical understanding of persecution, that this book tackles.
This is where there's a reality, and I don't mean to suggest any particular thing, but just make the point that it is not as easy to apply the Bible as people think. Right? The biblical text is far more challenging.
Throw it out.
Than a lot. Than people realize. It's not as the Bible said it, I believe it, and that settles it. Like that's the silliest thing I've ever heard.
That's like a 90s bumper sticker, isn't it?
It's an awful 90s bumper sticker, and
I think that actually is a real bumper sticker.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I've seen
that's
it.
what I'm
I've
quoting.
seen it.
I've seen it. So that's why that's a silly thing to say, and I think people who put that on their cars rarely have read their Bible because it's not that simple, right? So I think we've had a pretty good conversation.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so I would step on it 100 times over if it proved to be the more effective ministerial strategy. I don't think I'd feel bad about it.
If letting people die proved to be more effective,
I don't know. I would probably just, I don't know what I'd do. Keep preaching until I got killed, I guess. So let us know what you do in the comments, or don't. Actually, just sit and ponder on this video. Probably.
Let us know what you think. See the movie and let us know what you think.
sounds like it's just a trolley problem made into an entire movie.
I don't know.
A trolley problem?
Yeah, we'll go over it next time.
All right.
Trolling.
Faithandwhatever.com.
Got it.
We will
No,
find
trolley.
you
All right,
there.